everyone, welcome to Nico's Mandarin Learning Studio. Today we are not really learning any Chinese. I would like to do more like a vlog, giving you some information of the Chinese students when they are passing exams and at every levels, what kind of English exams they have to pass, and at what level, at what age they have to pass the test, and what is the quality of all those English tests that Chinese students have to pass. When I was in my universities and passing different English tests, every single one of us, to be able to pass the test, we will have to study really hard. I don't think I'm ever a good English student. I don't think my English level are great. I think there's still a lot more to practice. Even if I have been living in London using English as my main language every day for 10 years. So I thought that could be very interesting to show you what kind of tests that Chinese students need to prepare. I found quite a few audios that includes a CET level 4. A CET is College English Test. Every single college and university students needs to pass a CET level 4 when they're in grade 2. And they have to pass the CET level 6 before they graduate, which is in the level 4. The second year in uni, that's when the students are probably around age of 19 or 20. Let's check out what English listening test that they have to go through. So here we go. College English Test Level 4.
College English Test Band 4 Part 2 Listening Comprehension Section A Directions. In this section, you will hear 3 news reports. At the end of each news report, you will hear 2 or 3 questions. Both the news report and the questions will be spoken only once. After you hear a question, you must choose the best answer from the 4 choices marked A, B, C and D. Then, mark the corresponding letter on answer sheet 1 with a single line through the center.
News Report 1. A device that weighs less than 1 kilogram is part of a mission that will allow scientists to deliver 4th generation, or 4G, mobile coverage to the moon in 2019. If successful, the tiny device will provide the moon with its first ever mobile phone network. The lunar network will support high-definition streaming of video and data between the moon and Earth. The network is part of Mission to the Moon. This is a project with the goal of landing the first privately paid for mission to the moon. The 4G mission is set to launch from Cape Canaveral in the United States on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket in 2019. Mission to the Moon intends to establish and test the first elements of a communications network on the moon. The scientists working on the project opted to build a 4G rather than a 5th generation or 5G network. This is because 5th generation networks are still in testing and trial phases.
This is a test coming
This
from 2018.
means that a 5G network may not yet be stable enough to work on the moon's surface.
Questions 1 and 2 are based on the news report you have just heard. Question 1. What are scientists planning to do?
They're building a network which will create 4G, hopefully to provide 4G services on the moon.
Question 2. Why did scientists choose to set up a 4G network in their mission?
This will help communications. I really don't remember any of those. Did they mention that? Something to do with developing the technology to help.
News Report 2. Firefighters responded to a fire Wednesday night at an abandoned mall in Hayward. The fire was reported at 9:26 p.m. at an old shopping centre on Mission Avenue near St Mary's Church. 6 fire engines, 2 trucks and 2 chiefs responded to the scene.
6 fire engines.
Crews had the fire under control in about 45 minutes and managed to contain the fire to its point of origin. There were some people inside the building when the fire broke out, but there were no reports of any injuries.
No injuries.
Fire investigators have responded to the scene, but have not yet determined the cause of the fire. Firefighters will remain on the scene until later this morning to ensure that the fire doesn't start up again. The shopping mall had not been in use since 2002. In 2014, City Hall developed a plan to knock down the building and replace it with affordable housing. However, the plan was dropped due to lack of funds.
Lack of funds.
Questions 3 and 4 are based on the news report you have just heard. Question 3. What does the news item say about the fire?
What about the news what? That is a really broad question. They said a lot about that fire. Main knowledge. A fire was broken out in an old shopping centre in the evening, 9:40 in the evening, and a few fire trucks has responded to it, went to the scene, put out the fire. Some people was trapped in it. No one was hurt. That's how much I grabbed from listening to it only one time. Right, let's go. Sorry, I paused there. Sorry, should have just let it go.
Question 4. What had City Hall planned to do?
The City Hall planning to do. They were trying. The building were on the 2014. They were thinking about taking down the building, but it was and rebuilding the building itself. But
News report 3.
whoa, that was really
Potato
quick.
chips in Japan.
That was not easy. There are open questions as well. It's not like they give you choices you can choose. You have to write it down, what you have heard, in a very short time. That was difficult. I remember we're only on the level 4, which is the second year university students need to complete this test. I don't think I can get a full score from this test, even at this moment. Right, let's move on to CET level 6, which before graduation, all the college and university students need to pass. Oh, by the way, these 2 tests are mandatory. You've got to pass the test before you can graduate. It's not voluntary, it's compulsory. Everyone had to pass these tests.
College English Test, Band 6, Part 2, Listening Comprehension. Section A, Directions. In this section, you will hear 2 long conversations. At the end of each conversation, you will hear 4 questions. Both the conversation and the questions will be spoken only once. After you hear a question, you must choose the
Let's
best answer
forward.
from the 4 choices marked. I think she is to be...
Conversation 1.
Hey, I just read a great book about physics. I think you'd like it. It's called The Physics of the World. It's written by a scientist named Sylvia Mendez.
Oh, I read that book. It was great. The writer is a warm and competent guide to the mysteries of physics. I think it promises enrichment for any reader, from those who know little about science to the career physicist.
And it's refreshing to see a strong, curious, clever woman adding her voice to the scientific discourse in a field that has been traditionally dominated by men. I think she is to be commended for making an effort to include anecdotes about little-known female scientists. You know, they were often victims of a generation firmly convinced that the woman's place was in the home.
I like how the book is clearly written, with each chapter brought to life by pieces of fascinating knowledge. For example, in one chapter, she exposes a myth that I've heard taught by university physics professors. I've often heard that medieval glass windows are thicker at the bottom because glass flows like a fluid. This, she shows, is not true. The distortion is actually thanks to a peculiarity of the glassmaker's process.
Yeah, I like how she cultivates scientific engagement by providing a host of do-it-yourself experiments that bring the same foundational principles of classical physics that govern everything from the solar system to your kitchen table. From using complex laws of physics to test whether a spinning egg is cooked, to measuring atmospheric pressure by lifting a piece of cardboard, her hands-on examples make her book a truly interactive read.
Yes, I must say this equation-free book is an ideal read for scientists of all stripes, anyone teaching science, and even people who dislike physics.
Questions 1 to 4 are based on the conversation you have just heard.
I'm not sure.
Question 1. What does the woman say about the book the man recommended?
She read it, she loved it, she believed this book is good for all readers from all aspects. Could be a beginner reader, a beginner learning physics, or a great physics scientist. That can be
Question
beneficial
2.
from the story.
What can we
from
find
the
in the book the man recommended?
Oh, I didn't even hear it. 1 second.
Question 2. What can we find in the book the man recommended?
The man has a view that the book shows the woman who wrote this book must have come across quite difficult time during the generation where the people believed the women's place
Question
is at
3.
home.
How does the author bring her book to life?
Wow. She believed that she's giving in the book itself, every single chapter gives examples of how experiments were done.
Question 4. How does the book cultivate readers' interest in physics?
That's an open question again. Because the book is really well read, people can be inspired from reading every chapters and take the experiment into their lives.
Conversation 2.
Well, let me
Hi,
pause
Professor.
here. Wow, that was hard. That was hard, wasn't it? So you can also see there's a level up in English vocabulary and grammar and the fluency of the conversation and the aspect of the topic itself has all leveled up from the CET level 4. The listener will really need to have a certain level of vocabularies in mind to be able to understand and grab all those concepts. Right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, now moving on to probably the hardest test for any university students needs to pass, but this one is called the level 8 for any students that's in majoring in English or English literature or English language. This test is only mandatory for all those students, not everyone else, but everyone whoever is interested and want to take the exam, they can do it. But it's mandatory only for English studying students in universities.
Test for English Majors 2018. Grade 8. Part 1. Listening Comprehension. Section A, Mini Lecture. In this section you will hear a mini lecture. You will hear the mini lecture once only. While listening to the mini lecture, please complete the gap-filling task on answer sheet 1
up so much stress
and write no more than 3 words for each gap. Make sure what you fill in is both grammatically and semantically acceptable.
I don't know what that
You
word
may
means.
use the blank sheet for note-taking. You have 30 seconds to preview the gap-filling task.
I can't even understand the full question, the requirement. I don't understand that word in only the requirement. Oh, 30 seconds to preview the gap filling task. Ooh. Alright, let's just go.
You'll be given 3 minutes to check your work.
Okay.
Language and humanity. Good morning, everyone. In today's lecture, we're going to discuss the relationship between language and humanity.
Language, humanity.
As we all know, language is very powerful, and it allows you to put a thought from your mind directly in someone else's mind. Languages are like genes talking, getting things they want. And you just imagine the sense of wonder in a baby when it first discovers that, merely by uttering a sound, it can get objects to move across a room, as if by magic. and maybe even into its mouth. Now we need to explain how and why this remarkable trait, humans' ability to do things with language, has evolved, and why did this trait evolve only in our species? In order to get an answer to the question, we have to go to tool use in the chimpanzees. Chimpanzees can use tools, and we take that phenomenon as a sign of their intelligence. But if they really were intelligent, why would they crack open nuts with a rock? Why wouldn't they just go to a shop and buy a bag of nuts that somebody else had already cracked open for them? Why not? I mean, that's what we do. The reason the chimpanzees don't do that is that they lack what psychologists and anthropologists call social learning. That is, they seem to lack the ability to learn from others by copying or imitating or simply watching. As a result, they can't improve on others' ideas, learn from others' mistakes, or even benefit from others' wisdom. And so they just do the same thing over and over and over again. In fact, we could go away for 1,000,000 years and come back, and these chimpanzees would be doing the same thing with the same rocks to crack open the nuts. Okay, so what this tells us is that, contrary to the old saying, monkey see, monkey do, the surprise really is that all of the other animals really cannot do that. At least not very much. But by comparison, we humans can learn. We can learn by watching other people and copying or imitating what they can do. We can then choose, from among a range of options available, the best one. We can benefit from others' ideas. We can build on their wisdom. And as a result, our ideas do accumulate, and our technology progresses. And this cumulative cultural adaptation, as anthropologists call this accumulation of ideas, is responsible for everything around you in your bustling and teeming everyday life. I mean, the world has changed out of all proportion to what we would recognize even 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. And all of this is because of cumulative cultural adaptation. For instance, the chairs you're sitting in today, the lights in this lecture hall, my microphone, the iPads and the smartphones that you carry around with you. All are a result of cumulative cultural adaptation. But our acquisition of social learning would create an evolutionary dilemma. And the solution to the dilemma, it's fair to say, would determine not only the future course of our psychology, but the future course of the entire world. And most importantly for this, it'll tell us why we have language. And the reason that dilemma arose is, it turns out, that social learning is visual theft. What I mean is, if I can learn by watching you, I can steal your best ideas, and I can benefit from your efforts, without having to put in the same time and energy that you did into developing them. Social learning really is visual theft. And in any species that acquired it, it would encourage you to hide your best ideas, lest somebody steal them from you. And so sometime around 200,000 years ago, our species confronted this crisis, and we chose to develop the systems of communication that would allow us to share ideas and to cooperate amongst others. Choosing this option would mean that a vastly greater fund of knowledge and wisdom would become available to any one individual than would ever arise from within an individual family or an individual person on their own. Well, language is the result. Language evolved to solve the crisis of visual theft. Language is a piece of social technology for enhancing the benefits of cooperation, for reaching agreements, for striking deals, and for coordinating our activities. And you can see that in a developing society that was beginning to acquire language, not having language would be like a bird without wings. As I said at the beginning, language really is the voice of our genes. But as we spread out around the world, we developed thousands of different languages. Currently, there are about 7,000 or 8,000 different languages spoken on Earth. And then another problem occurred. It seems that we use our language not just to cooperate, but to draw rings around our cooperative groups
Alright,
and...
I need to pause a little bit because I'm not sure how long this is gonna last. Let's find out. Ooh, it's still going.
Now you have 3 minutes to check your work.
Okay, right. So this is a question that is written on the sheet. And in this video, they didn't give you the sheet, so I wouldn't know what question it could be. Oh well, that's okay. But I guess the question could be regarding what is the idea of the what is the meaning of language, and what does language can benefit people, humankind to progress. Why a chimpanzee can't progress in their life because they cannot learn from the language from other people's social behavior, but human being can do. They're progressing in every way because they can learn from each other, from visual theft. That's a quite interesting piece of article. You can see the level of English that these tests are given to the students to prepare. If you're an English major, I suppose your level should be higher. Yeah, it's difficult. That must require a lot of effort. By the way, I passed CET 4 and I failed CET 6 2 times. And I passed the 3rd time, I remember. That was because I had to do it to graduate from my university. I also tried this test as well, but I failed horribly. And I thought the level was too high. So I just gave up on that. Whew. Okay, now let's move on to the next test, which is called IELTS test. This is a test designed for students who like to pursue further educations abroad. Right, let's try off their listening test.
The number of book...
The one for the bookcase.
be played first.
Well, go straight into these questions. Here we go.
Hello?
Oh, hello. I'm ringing about the advertisement in yesterday's newspaper. The one for the bookcases. Can you tell me if they're still available?
We've sold 1, but we still have 2 available.
The number of bookcases available is 2. So 2 has been written in the space.
Oh, that's an
Now
example.
we shall begin.
Okay, that tells you
You should
how to
answer the
these
questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time.
One time?
Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
5 questions.
Hello?
Oh, hello. I'm ringing about the advertisement in yesterday's newspaper. The one for the bookcases. Can you tell me if they're still available?
We've sold 1, but we still have 2 available.
Oh, it's the same.
Right. Can you tell me a bit about them?
Sure. What do you want to know?
Well, I'm looking for something to fit in my study. So, well, I'm not too worried about the height, but the width's quite important. Can you tell me how wide each of them is?
Why?
They're both exactly the same size. Let me see, I've got the details written down somewhere. Yes, so they're both 75 centimetres wide and 180 centimetres high.
180.
Okay, fine. That should fit in okay. And I don't want anything that looks too severe. Not made of metal, for example. I was really looking for something made of wood.
That's all right. They are, both of them.
Made of wood.
So, are they both the same price as well?
No, the first bookcase is quite a bit cheaper. It's just £15. We paid £60 for it just 5 years ago, so it's very good value. It's in perfectly good condition. Well, they're both in very good condition, in fact. But the
£15,
first one
right?
isn't the same
1.5.
quality as the other one. It's a good sturdy bookcase. It used to be in my son's room, but it could do with a fresh coat of paint.
Oh,
Need a paint.
it's painted.
Yes, it's cream at present. But as I say, you could easily change that if you wanted, to fit in with your colour scheme.
Yes, I'd probably paint it white if I got it. Let's see, what else? How many shelves has it got?
6. 2 of them are fixed, and the other 4 are adjustable.
so you can shift them up and down according to the sizes of your books.
Too fixed.
Right, fine. Well, that certainly sounds like a possibility.
Very English talking.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10 on page 9.
Right, color dark brown. Other features, almost 80 years old. Has a 6 stairs? No, 6 layers. Has a glass. Cost £15. Name Mrs. I don't know this one.
Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Oh no, this is difficult.
But the second one's a lovely bookcase too. That's not painted, it's just the natural wood colour, dark brown. It was my grandmother's, and I think she bought it sometime in the 1930s. So I'd say it must be getting on for 80 years old. So it's very good quality. They don't make them like that nowadays.
And you said it's the same dimensions as the first one?
Yes, and it's got the 6 shelves. But it
shelves.
also has a cupboard at the bottom that's really useful for keeping odds and ends in.
Right.
Oh, and I nearly forgot to say, the other thing about it is it's got glass doors. So the books are all kept out of the dust. So it's really good value for the money. I'm really sorry to be selling it, but we just don't have the room for it.
How much is it?
So what are you asking for that one?
£95.
95.
It's quite a bit more, but it's a lovely piece of furniture. A real heirloom.
Yes.
Heirloom.
All the same, it's a lot more than I wanted to pay. I didn't really want to go above 30 or 40.
Oh, that's a bit too low.
Anyway, the first one sounds fine.
Right, I just cut it from there just to understand how the questions are like. I haven't seen the question sheets, so I wouldn't know what exactly in particular I need to listen to carefully. But now reading all these, the questions from 6 to 10, I know that if I know these questions, I can write those answers down straight away after hearing them, which is a lot easier. So I guess that the difficulties of this IELTS test, it's okay. I'm quite confident that I can complete the test with a quite high score now. Only right now, not 10 years ago. Right, the last test we're trying to listen to is going to be a TOFEL test. The TOFEL test, a similar test compared to IELTS, that's what we just listened to. But IELTS tests are for students who like to go study in universities in Europe. And TOFEL is for students who like to go further education in America. So I suppose the differences could be the accents or the culture that is written in those conversations of the test. I never tried the TOEFL test before because I never needed, but let's see if I'm right about that.
Listen to a conversation between a student and a registrar.
Very American.
Hi, I'd like to drop off my graduation form. I understand you need this in order to process my diploma.
Okay, I'll take that. Before you leave, let me check our computer. Looks like you're okay for graduation. And, actually, I'm getting a warning flag on your academic record here.
Really?
Yeah. Let's see what's what. Okay, are you familiar with our graduation requirements?
I think so.
Well, then you know you need 48 credits in your major field to graduate, and at least 24 credits at the intermediate level or higher. Also, after your second year, you have to meet with your department chair to outline a plan for the rest of your time here. In the past, we also issued letters before a student's final year began to let them know what they needed to take in their final year to be okay. But we don't do that anymore.
I definitely met with my chairperson 2 years ago. He told me that I needed 8 more courses at the intermediate level or higher in the last 2 years to be okay. So I'm not sure what the problem is. I made sure I got those credits.
Unfortunately, the computer's usually pretty reliable. So I'm not sure what's going on here.
It could be that I've taken 2 basic courses but coupled both of them with field experiences.
What do you mean?
Well, I could only take intro courses because there were no intermediate level courses available for those particular topics. My chairperson told me that if I did independent field research in addition to the assigned work in each course, they would count as intermediate level courses. My classmates, some of my classmates did this for an easy way to meet their intermediate course requirement. But I did it to get the kind of depth in those topics I was going for.
Okay, let's just stop here. I can see from the questions sheet that people can actually answer the top 3 questions now. Let's try and have a look at this. Why does the man go to see the registrar? To find out why he's not on the list of graduations? No, he didn't know that. To explain why he has not fulfilled his graduation requirement? No, he didn't know that either. To find out the exact requirement for graduation? No. To submit a document required for graduation? Answer is D. That was quite easy. 16. According to the registrar, what step is currently taken to ensure that students fulfill their graduation requirements? Academic records are regularly checked by the office. Students meet the department chairperson to plan their course. Students receive letters. Warning letters are sent to students who have fallen behind. What steps are currently taken? So the D, the warning letters, doesn't really being issued anymore at this stage. So not D. Students receiving letters listed in the courses that they will need to take. Students meet with the department chairperson to plan their coursework. I think the answer is B. The student has mentioned he did meet a chairperson and he want to clarify that. So I suppose that this is a requirement. Why does the man mention his classmates? To explain how he obtained information. To point out that many students like to do field research to show that it's difficult to get intermediate level credits. To emphasize his motivation to do research. This answer is C, because I remember when the student mentioned his classmates is where he wanted to point out some of the requirement is difficult to accomplish. Right, so I suppose TOEFL and IELTS English listening test are not as hard comparing to the other tests we have just tried to listen to. But either way, all these tests requires the students need to prepare and do lots of mock tests, get familiar of the test forms and to be able to pass exams. Recording this video, it reminded me that 15 years ago, how hard I was studying every day for all of the subjects I need to pass exam for. That's why I had no free time to do anything else. I was so happy after I graduated from uni. I thought I never had to learn anything from a textbook ever again. And then I got my first job. And then the first thing that I need to do for the job is to pass some tests. Anyway, I guess studying is always a good thing for us. We need to continue learning. As we grow older, we need to keep learning new things. Like the other listening test has mentioned, the humankind has the ability to learn from other people's knowledge. We need to extend that skills to the full capacity to get smarter and make life better. In Chinese, 活到老，学到老. Okay, hopefully you enjoy this video. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.